This is lesson 20. We're going to start from Ela Amar Rav Ashi. Let's just go back quickly what we did in the previous lessons. Okay, we are discussing the opinion of Rebbe Lazar. And the case that we're discussing is Mafker Nezakav. That means if someone litters. And we said that someone holds chayiv, someone holds pater. Chad amar chayiv, chad amar pater. The question was, what did Rebbe Lazar hold? Was he the one that said chayiv, or was he the one that said pater? The other opinion was Rabbi Yochanan. So we said, oh, Rebbe Lazar must hold chayiv. So I put in this column the order of the Gemara. First it said Rabbi Lazar holds chayiv because we said Shnei Devarim. There are two things that are not belonging to a person, but nevertheless he's responsible for them. And one of them was Bar B'Shus Harabim, was a pit in a public property. If you dug a hole in a public property, you would be responsible. Well, the same thing should apply if you litter, if you throw something down. Our example was a Snapple bottle. Someone gets hurt from that, and Rabbi Lazar held chayiv on a pit. Well, Rabbi Lazar must hold chayiv also if you littered. So the Gemara says, how could you say that? The second case of the Gemara was if someone turns over dung in Rosh Hashanah and someone gets hurt on that. So the Mishnah, there was a Mishnah that says you're chayiv. However, Rabbi Lazar said that you're only chayiv if you own it. So that would seem that Rabbi Lazar was the one that said pater. That's why we put this second case in this column. Rabbi Lazar would say if you don't own something, you're going to be pater. So we said, well, actually, that's talking about really Rebbe Lazar holds chayiv. Why over there, in that case, you were pater? That was a specific case where you actually didn't cause any new damage. It was the same old obstacle that was there before because you put it back in the same place. So when you're doing nothing new, you're not going to be responsible unless you own it. If you don't own it, then it's like as if you didn't even put it there. The Gemara says, well, hold on 1 second. It goes back to saying that Rebbe Lazar really would hold pater. Why is that? Because when you lifted it up and you put it back down, so the first action that the original person who put it there, that disappeared. Now you put it back down, you created something new, even though you put it in the same place, but that's still brand new. So you're creating a new damage, and nevertheless, you are pater. It must mean because if you don't own it, which that's what we're talking about, you're pater if you don't own it. So creating a damage is pater. So mafkin zakov must be pater. So now we have a contradiction because Rebbe Lazar says chayiv in this case, but now we're saying that in this instance Rebbe Lazar is saying pater, and we've established that. So the answer that we're going to now is Ela Amar Rav Ashi. Rav Ashi says a new answer. We're talking about that you put a big period now. You turned it over. Hafcha means to turn it over. All right. I don't know if you can read that. That's a bad color. Let's take that back. Do a new color. Let's see. Do a nice red. You turned over. We're talking about that you have a little shovel and you lifted it up. Pachas means less than, or I'll do under. It really means less than. Below. Below shleisha, below three tvachim. Okay, now what this is saying is that you really did nothing here. So if we would go back to this instance over here, this is like proving this point that when you put it back in the same place, you actually did nothing. So really, Rabbi Lazar would really hold chayiv. Why over here does he say you're pater if you don't own it? That's because you did nothing. Okay. Now I want to just bring out a certain point, and we'll do it with this. Okay. The way this chart works is that going this way, this means Eina Zeicha. This column here is what you don't own, and this is what you do own. And the way the columns work this way is if you put it down, if you lifted it up below 3 tvachim, or if you lifted it above 3 tvachim. So, for example, in this column right here, this is the easiest one. Let's make no, it's green. I can't even erase it. Let's see. So in this column right here, there's two reasons why you should be responsible for this instance. You lifted it above 3 tvachim, so you created a bar. You did something new. And the second reason is, it's your obstacle. The second reason is because it belongs to you. So even if you didn't do it, maybe you would still be responsible. Okay, so I put over here those lines mean chayev. The case where you would be pater And the case that Rav Ashi is talking about is where you don't own it. This I'll write in there, Rav Ashi. Rav Ashi. You don't own it, and you're also did not really create a new bar because you lifted it below 3 tvachim, so you hardly did anything. Let's just imagine like you walked by and saw it, right? You wouldn't all of a sudden be responsible for this dung that's in Rosh Hashanah. It has nothing to do with you. So here you did touch it, you lifted it up a slight amount, but that's not counted. And so therefore, because you don't own it and you also did so little to it, you're not going to be responsible. However, of course, if you do own it, then you will be responsible. So this Rabbi Lazar, according to Rav Ashi, was talking about these cases right here. However, what would be the case by Mafkir Nezakov? Whoa, Mafkir Nezakov, according to Rav Ashi, that's a different story. Over there, you would be chayiv. So we would have to make lines through it. Let's make lines through it. Mafkir Nezakov would really be chayiv. And now we have no problem. We've just answered our question. Okay. Now let's go back. Let's do a little bit further in the Gemara. Umay duchke. Umay is what? Right? We've said that many times. Umay duchke. What is forcing? Deichik is to force or compel. Force. What is forcing the Rabbi Lazar? What is forcing Rabbi? Let's erase that little thing over there. Whoops. My duchke de Rabbi Lazar. What is forcing Rabbi Lazar leukme to establish kegoin that the case is shehafcha lepachas migimel, that you lifted it less than 3, and then we'll have to explain that why are you pater. So if we go back to our what's forcing Rabbi Lazar to explain that the Mishna that says a hoifech has a galal, that says that you're chayiv, is talking about this case right here that you lifted it less than 3, and then he has to say that's only if you own it. But if you don't own it, you'll be pater. But really, Mafkin Nezakav is chayiv. Knows what's forcing him to say? Our question is on this case right here. What's forcing him to say that hoifech, that's? I'll do it here. That's the case of hoifech es hagalal. That's the case of chayiv. That's the Gemara's asking. What's forcing him to say it's this case? We can actually say it's this case, and it would be the same thing, and it would be a little easier. So let's go. My duchke, the Rabbi Lazar, what's forcing Rabbi Lazar me to establish that you lifted it up less than 3? V'taima, and the reason is that you intended to acquire it. Ha'ein miskaven liskisba, but if you did not intend to acquire it, you have to make a big period over there. Then the din would be yud pater. Lukma, establish it. I like to say that lamed of lukma is like that is the L of let him establish, or let's. Okay, that lamed is like the let's. Let's establish it l'mayla migimel, that it's above 3. And even if you did not intend to acquire it, liskis means to acquire, right? You should still be chayiv, because in both of these instances, nothing is changing. You're going to be chayiv for mafker nezakav. This case is the case of mafker nezakav. You're going to be chayiv either way. The only thing is that Rabbi Lazar came along. We have a case of Haif Chasagol. Comes along Rabbi Lazar and says, Loi Shanu Ella. We only learned it Ella only if you're Zeichen it, right? But if you're not Zeichen it, then you're going to be Pater. So why does Rabbi Lazar have to come along and limit the story of Haif Chasagol? Let him just talk about this. And then whether you acquired it or not, you're going to be chayiv. Why does he? What's forcing him to read the Mishnah that it's talking about a case that you lifted it less than 3? Say it's talking about above 3, and then whether you acquire it or didn't acquire it, either way you're going to be chayiv. Okay, the Gemara answers Amarava. Rava answers Masnisan Kashise. The Mishnah is difficult. Kashise comes from the word kasha. This is the answer. My area. Why specifically here? My is I translate as why, even though it doesn't mean why. But as in the phrase, it's why specifically. Hafach. This we have to put in quotes. Why specifically does it say hoifech esagalal? Listnei higbia. Again, listnei is let it say. let it learn, or let it teach. Tini is to teach. Let it teach. Higbia. Let it say that it's a case of just lifting up. Why does it say you're turning over? Elashmamina. We see from here, kol hafach. Anytime it says hafach, turning over, that's talking about lamata mishleisha. That's below 3. Because if it wanted to tell me that you're picking it above 3, then it would have used the word higbia to lift. Why does it say hafach means to turn? Right? That's the difference here. Okay, now the Gemara says, Umidi Rabbi Lazar Amar Chayev, since Rabbi Lazar says Chayev, by Mafkin Zakov, when you litter, when you make something ownerless, so Rabbi Yechanan Amar Pater. Rabbi Yechanan must be the one that says Pater, right? Because it was a Machlekes, Rabbi Lazar and Rabbi Yechanan. We'll leave the question on this for lesson 21.